The big three, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, maybe not necessarily in that order anymore, but that is going to be the focus of today's video. Going to be trying out something a little bit newer here as we do go through some Bitcoin price action, some Ethereum price action, some Solana price action, also looking at those versus Bitcoin pairs, and then also Solana versus Ethereum. Just kind of see, what the big three are doing, because I do believe that these are like the major sort of like operators in this market, basically, like kind of like your major indices, if you will, that most of the things are kind of based off of. So without further ado, we can just jump right in this one. Bitcoin analysis is going to be very, very short here. Daily time frame, as we can see, nothing's really changed from yesterday to today, as we did say was, kind of likely, being that Saturday is the lowest volatility day, statistically speaking. However, on the daily time frame here, looking at the HPDR indicator, it does suggest that if we are going to see a pullback, like if there is going to be one, I'm not saying that there is, but if there is going to be one, area of interest to watch to the downside would be just below $57,000, around 56,800 or so, give or take, a small amount from that number. If traditional markets, basically open up on a pullback this week, perhaps that's an area to be looking at. But realistically, I think the higher term timeframes here are the ones to be mindful of. And on the 5-day, we can see that Bitcoin is going to have a chance to actually reclaim the median on the 5-day HPDR, which is currently at 59,760. So, looking good, but still needs another day. And of course, the weekly is going to be closing today, and any sort of a closure back above the 38.2 level, which is, by the way, at 59,221 by the end of today. Bitcoin's more or less back in normality as far as this overall consolidation goes, and it's really hard to say that anything significant has even happened in this past week of price action when we go especially to a line chart right here. Now, again, is that super helpful when you get a wick down to like just below $50,000? I mean, obviously fucking not, of course. But when we're looking at just general analysis and general trajectory, looking at this chart, I mean, very little happens here. Assuming that Bitcoin closes, anywhere here, anywhere around here, especially above $60,000, that criteria will be still, it'll still be valid. So in this case, tonight, again, watch 59,250 basically, as long as Bitcoin's above there. More or less, it starts to look a lot more like a long-form consolidation continuing to mature. And of course, on the 5-day time frame closing tomorrow, if Bitcoin closed above the median, I would be looking for Bitcoin to put in a rally probably closer to the midpoint of the $60,000 region. So, small moves here generally, but things are happening in the background. Anyways, now let's get on into the other of the big threes. So we'll start off with Solana. Solana just, I don't know, it's cool. I don't even know if it's cool. But basically Solana on the weekly time frame, again, just a very obvious consolidation going around at the highs here, as Solana does kind of put in this range between about 130 to the downside versus about 185 to the upside. Not super helpful there because nothing has really changed here overall. This is being marked by extremely low volatility on the weekly time frame, which we have seen a few other times in history during other long form consolidations, like we saw in May of 2023, and then before that on the breakdown of September of 2022. So this is characteristic of such things, but it doesn't really give us a bias on direction as of right now. Momentum is still to the upside as long as Solana is closing today above 128, so would favor, I suppose, an upside try perhaps early this week. 5-day time frame is pivoted at 150, so realistically, what I'm looking at, I'm just looking at sideways here, basically. If it does want to come down, anywhere down around low 140s is fine. If it does want to pop up, anywhere around 180 is fine. It's quite literally in the middle of the range. There's not any humongously interesting things, at least in my opinion, right there, as this one does continue to just trade sideways. But here's the thing. Let's look at Solana versus Bitcoin, because that's what I think more people are really interested in, is Bitcoin versus, or altcoin versus Bitcoin pairings. And Solana versus Bitcoin on the daily, actually a pretty similar chart here, to be honest with you, as far as the daily does go. Now, the daily obviously still consolidating sideways. Short term, can it pop back down and maybe test down around, I don't know, what would this be, Tuesday's open? Sure, I mean, definitely possible. Don't necessarily have a strong bias on that. If we do see perhaps a daily closure below 25.1, then yes, we will see momentum flip back onto the downside. So I suppose I'd be biased towards a short-term pullback, but short-term pullbacks have been creating higher lows the whole way through, and the higher term timeframes are, really the ones to be mindful of right here. Again, extreme low, let me actually get rid of this. Extreme lows on volatility does suggest that yes, this is a very mature consolidation. And if I put on my drawing tools, What the fuck was I trying to say over here? Oh yeah, we did get the 382 test. Okay, great. I've actually even looked at this chart, but it appears that I actually already did chart this one out just a little bit in advance. Anyways, as far as this goes, looking at the weekly, it is just one massive range, right? And in this range has been putting in higher lows. So I am biased towards an upside breakout over time. But is it going to happen like right now? I don't know about that. I do think that this one still takes a little bit more time, at least until the end of this month, I suspect, before we get any sort of like major potential try for a move above or below this current range. To the upside, the obvious area of resolution would be back above the March highs, basically. I'd even say back above, what is this area right here? Like 28.5 probably does it for me as well, especially on a weekly closing basis. Momentum will remain to the upside here in the short term as long as above 233. Overall, I would expect this one to continue to the upside versus Bitcoin. See what the monthly looks like. Yeah, monthly still overall fine. Monthly current momentum pivot is at 265. So as long as it's above there by end of this month, with actually right now it's below, I would say that there's a pretty good chance that it would actually try for a real breakout in, September most likely. And at that point, you got to be thinking retest of your prior all-time highs of December of 2021. Again, if that condition is met, it's a long month left to go. It's like literally barely a third of the month has already been eaten up here. So it's a little bit premature to be speaking too much about that. But overall, as always, follow the trend, and the trend is your friend. And in this case, the trend is very much to the upside. And I wouldn't really have any major concerns about Solana, especially as long as it's above last week's low. I mean, that's actually probably the most simplistic portion of analysis that I could provide here. And as long as it's above last week's low, bias has to be to the upside. Below last week's low, okay, yeah, fair enough. This one's probably at least come back down to the prior range lows into the mid ones region. But for now, give it the benefit of the doubt, I expect, and let it do its thing. Maybe a short-term pullback, however, because this one does look like short term. It's just continuing on with this sideways trudge. So pull back down, wouldn't really do all that much for me. But yeah, it probably a little bit more likely. Let's actually see what our fibs would be suggestive of right here. I guess I already have them in. And yeah, it's right at the 50%. It's right at the 50% level. So, kind of have to be looking at that as a bit of a pivot short term. Last week, yeah, the 382 did catch that last higher low. So, yeah, I guess short term pullback, maybe another higher low, but keep your eye on this one around end of this month. That's when the real setup is going to be, or potentially be. Anyways, moving on to Ethereum. Let's check out what Ethereum's doing, especially compared to Solana, which we'll get into a little bit later. See what the weekly looks like right here. It looks like I already have my chart all fucked up, all fucked around. Yeah, I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. This one really got hit on the head during this past week's price action. We do see one of these long-term trend lines. Yes, I'm not a big fan of these diagonal trend lines. They're kind of hard to trust. But we do see some, we do see a few major tests on this region. So I suppose even if you're super bearish, you got to be looking for a bounce off there. Obviously, there is a bounce off there, so kind of redundant in what I'm saying, but also kind of meeting with that horizontal trend line. I'm not a humongous fan of trend lines overall, but here's the thing. With the way that this week is closing as one massive hammer dildo, we can see that the weekly momentum is about to turn up freshly here and reject the bearish control zone, assuming today, which is the weekly close above 25.84. In fact, this is probably one of the more, I think, cut and dry charts. We even see a nice trend line on the weekly stochastic oscillator. So turning around this region, I would kind of look at that as a successful regression test and turning back up, and again have to be looking for bounce likely to continue probably this week, maybe next week, or when I say this week, I mean this coming week, obviously like the next basically 7 days of price action. Where can targets be from that? Well, let's see where some of our major fibs coming around 382 level, or sorry, we're already at the 382 level, or Ethereum's at the 382 level. Next major area would be the 50%, which is 2800, and then you got 2980 or so. Above 2980, I'd actually look at that. I'd look at that as a damn good signal that this thing is like lows are in, it's fine, and sideways and up is the name of the game. Until then, there's always gonna be a slight question in the background. Is this just about to roll on over again or not? kind of similar, as Bitcoin. Like if Bitcoin were to come back down, especially below like, 56, 57,000 bucks and close like higher term time frames below that, I'd be a little bit more concerning for right now. But in this case, Ethereum short term, let's check out what the daily looks like. Daily looks like it actually even wants to try another short term upside move here, maybe towards 2,800. Again, working off of these extreme conditions on daily volatility. So this is kind of like a mean reversion play right here. It actually does kind of bode well, I guess, for Solana and Bitcoin too, because those ones were certainly less obvious. This one is actually a lot more obvious, with momentum continuing to the upside as long as Ethereum's above 24.15. So, I do look at this one as a little bit more likely. 2-day time frame. Current pivot is basically 2,900, but that one will close tonight. Let's see if that one moves further south, kind of meeting up with current price action. If it does, another good indication that this one will continue kind of sideways and up, probably closer to 3,000 in these coming weeks. 5-day time frame also very interesting right here. We do see another one of these trendline regressions coming in from the lows of June of 2022, by the way, which I believe was the current cycle low for Ethereum. And that one will turn up again, probably not on this next period, unless if Ethereum does close above 28.50 tomorrow night. But I imagine that the offset will actually officially test this regression, and then 2, that pivoted number for the momentum will likely move significantly further down. If it moves, even $100 to the south side, it's going to be pretty easy to force momentum back up here. And, this is, again, what is this going to look like on a line chart? I'm actually curious. It looks fucking weird and ugly, and yeah, there's definitely a downtrend there, but at least I'd have to be looking for an extension on this bounce into next week, and perhaps around $3,000 or so. So yeah. Anyway, so let's look at Ethereum versus Bitcoin, and then we'll look at Solana versus Ethereum. Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Let me go back. Well, not the best one right here, but here's the thing. This chart is being done, to be fair, on a month, or this is actually a weekly time frame. I'm going to go to the monthly for the real look here. Let's actually start with the daily as usual. Daily time frame, yep, very likely does continue on with the bounce. I actually do think that it probably will at least test this region at 0.4475 satoshis, something like that. Daily time frame momentum will continue the upside as long as it's above 4,339. Is it above right now? It actually is above right now. So, I'm inclined to say that this one does have a local low right here and will work its way back up. The question is, how far back will it go up? And what are the monthly areas going to be? But looking at it right here, yeah, 50% level is at 46. 382 is at 45. I do think that you'll at least test that one. I wouldn't be surprised to see this one hit the 47 region right here. Again, it has one of these like super high quality, at least in my experience, major high or major low signals on daily volatility, which is the double extreme, where you get one pop on in this case the BBWP, and then the second pop right here. And usually those are indicative of that current move being done for now, and at least a little bit more of a prolonged consolidation period isn't coming. And during this, we do expect this one likely to trade sideways and up in at least hitting some of these regions right here. Looking at the weekly time frame, definitely under pressure here still, but my big focus for the long term would be on the monthly. I would have no problem calling a much further nasty move to the downside. Let me actually get rid of this for right now. A much further, very, very nasty move to the downside, probably down to like 3.3 million satoshis if this thing does close below, very specifically the May lows, which is 4.473 million satoshis right there, which right now it is below. But again, this is a monthly, like there's basically 3 weeks left of price action to kind of fill out here, so a lot can happen here. And while the short term very likely does bounce, it probably is going to bring it above that level anyways. So it'd be very premature to be calling a breakdown here at all. Can it happen? Yeah, sure, absolutely. And it is like, it's right at the area where that is like a real concern. But for right now, I'd still probably hold my horses at least for a little bit, at least wait for like a weekly or two to close below this region right here. And momentum will still be working against it on the weekly time frame. Like 5.1 million satoshis is the current pivot for the weekly time frame. So there will there will be a shot, but give a chance for the daily to bounce and then come back to it after that. If it starts to reclaim that region, I do think that this is going to likely be a bit of a shakeout move. Or maybe not necessarily a shakeout move, but it's just going to continue, sideways. It's like, because if I say shakeout, like, it implies that, it's going to start running to the upside after this current consolidation is done. And I don't know about that. This thing has not run to the upside in a very long time. And anytime that we see price action like this, which has been consistent since September of 2022, nearly 2 years fucking straight, it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign at all. So yeah. Anyways, let's look at Solana versus Ethereum. This was a chart that came up a lot this past week, especially during the live streams. And I also saw it on crypto Twitter a few times as well. This one very, very close to breaking out this week. I don't know if it's actually going to do it. It would need to close a little bit higher than where it's at right now, officially at 5.9 whatever the hell this number is right here. It's the denominating currency butyrols for betalic butyrene or whatever the fuck his name is. If it does close above there, I would be looking at this as an actual confirmed breakout. It's very, very close to it right now, but 16 and a half hours left to go in today's daily, in today's weekly. Is it going to close above there or not? If it does, yeah, look for this one to continue upwards and onwards. Volatility is expanding from here, so there is a legitimate potential for that, and momentum will remain to the upside on the weekly, I suspect. Yeah, as long as this one's above 46, which it is healthily above as of right now. So there will actually be a chance in this next week or two of price action for this one to really break out. 5-day time frame, yeah, that's hard to hate as well here. Only way that I'd really be looking for this one to, or only way that I'd be saying that this one is starting to get a bit weaker is if it comes back down below last Sunday's low. Last Sunday's low right here, by the way. It's this guy right here. See, whoops, not that one right there. That one right there. Work, you fucking magnets, fuck face. There we go. And as you can see, that's actually at the 50% level as well, which is exactly where this thing bounced this week or in this past week. So, coming back down below there, you're probably in for a more prolonged consolidation, very likely coming back down to the prior range lows, somewhere down around here, something like that. But until then, there is a real threat of a breakout. We'll see where today closes. If it does close above that pivot, then fair enough. It's ready. If it doesn't, then it's not ready. And I'd be looking for this one to come back down. And for the Bulaw's sake, hopefully set in yet another higher low. Long term, however, I do think that this is more or less a formality. I mean, this one is ready. This one is ready, I do believe, to really start gaining a lot more pace actually on Ethereum here. Solana versus Ethereum. So Solana would be gaining pace on Ethereum, that is. Monthly still in a very, 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 very good spot. Quarterly, I mean, it's not much of a quarterly to be looking at, but closing on new highs wouldn't necessarily be bearish, obviously. So looking at all of the different moving pieces here, the real question is, does this one pull back first or not? Obviously, it is pulling back in the short term. If today does close below 61, I would be looking for a pullback first, and for the Bulaw's sake, hopefully a higher low, anything above this last Sunday low right here. If it does fail that low in a pullback, then expect a much more broad range and expect a much more prolonged consolidation. You're probably waiting until at least October. October is what I'm looking for, as my brain fails to find the words this morning. But yeah, other than that, I'm just checking my notes over here. Yes, short term. No, did we get that? Okay, yes. Actually, on my notes, I have. Oh no, that's Solana versus Bitcoin. Okay, all right, yeah. I do think that we're good here. Long term Solana versus Ethereum, I do believe that this one will continue to move upwards and onwards. I mean, that's a hard chart to hate as it is right now. It's more or less a timing thing. Looking a little bit more like this probably happens in the last quarter of this year rather than this quarter. But that's just my opinion, which would imply in the short term we do see this one continue to range actually rather than break out today. But hey, watch that number for the weekly closure. If it does close above there, then sure. All right. Send it, I suppose. And you can expect a real breakout if that does happen. So yeah, I'm gonna sign off on that note. As always, I want to wish you the best. Let me know if you like these altcoin Bitcoin videos, because I don't know, it's just a good thing to be doing on a weekend, especially when Bitcoin's doing fuck all. So there's not much to speak about there, obviously, as we went back to here. So yeah, that's going to do it for right now. As always, wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.